And now for part 2 of our program. As part of the General's Lady program, we present our Martha Washington Woman of History Award. Each year, one Hudson Valley woman is selected who exemplifies the qualities of Martha Washington and who has shared our promoted area's history. Past recipients, women who are present today, include Janet Dempsey, Carol Ash, Patricia Favada, who I think is here today. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Barbara Bedell, Mary McTammany, who's right here. Mary Mangione, Elizabeth McKean, Marianne Fish, Mara Farrell, Stella Bailey, Mary Etta Schneider, Mary Sudman Donovan, Kathleen P. Mitchell, Willa Skinner, Denise Doring Van Buren, Mary Ellen Matisse, right there, and Don Elliott from last year. So if we could give them a big round of applause. And joining this list of distinguished women is Mildred Starin. Mrs. Starin is most notably celebrated for her work in sharing the Gomez Mill House with the world. She was nominated by June Henley of Safe Harbors and Newburgh historian Mary McTammany. Mary, if you could please come up and share why you nominated Miss Starin.
Hi, everybody. Sometimes in life, we are lucky that the right person comes along at the right time. And that happened in Newburgh with the work and the contributions of Mrs. Mildred Starin. It's why we've come together today to honor her with this year's Woman of History Award named after Martha Washington. As you can see from the plaque of names that are out in the lobby listing previous recipients, and Paul just named them for you, the award was established years ago to recognize someone who follows examples set by Martha Washington in the service she gave our nation and our community of Newburgh while headquartered here with her husband, the General, in 1782 and 83. Martha put her own comfort and wishes aside for a cause she knew should prevail. She invested all her time in a household here on this site where history was happening. It wasn't a house she created, but it was one where she understood she could make an important difference. Another old homestead, not far up the road from here, is what set Mildred Starin on the path to making another historic difference. 160 years later, Millie was captivated by local history as a young adult growing up in Middle Hope, New York, part of the town of Newburgh. At the end of World War II, Miss Mildred DeVito married Jeffrey Starin, and the couple set out to purchase an old home that Millie had long admired. They took out a GI mortgage and moved into a 1714, older than the Hasbrook house, a 1714 house along Jews Creek on the Newburgh-Marlborough border. The old stone and brick dwelling and its outbuildings had been neglected, and they set about to rebuild and restore. Jeffrey opened a real estate office on Broadway in Newburgh, and Millie, as she raised their 4 active children, worked as a decorator. Altogether, the Starins lived for 50 years inside what became a national landmark and a treasure. The physical and social status of what today we know as Gomez Mill House developed under Millie's careful guidance. As she repaired and refurbished, Millie researched all she could about the artifacts she found and the lifestyles that they indicated. She started planting the barren property with flowers and trees she researched as being current and correct for the 18th and 19th centuries. She carefully established what she called her Martha Washington herb garden. And she shared the fragrant cuttings from that with visitors who would come to her door. It was she who traced the lineage of owners and occupants who contributed to the mill house's story. And she did this way before there was an Ancestry.com. She secured New York State registered status for her homestead, and in 1973, not long after the Federal Historic Preservation Act was passed, she succeeded in getting the property on the National Register as the oldest extant Jewish residence in the United States. Knowing the site had a special lesson to convey, Millie sought out descendants of each family who occupied the home all the way back to Louis Moses Gomez in the early 18th century. From each such person, she collected family and site history, often securing a document or an artifact that highlighted a special moment in time. In 1983, Millie hosted a seminar in Mill House and invited a large cast of important characters in the history, museum, and preservation worlds. By 1986, Millie was able to bring together enough supporters and money to establish a foundation for the Mill House. That foundation continues to preserve, fund, and educate about this early trading post settlement and all the history that happened there, which is layered and amazing, from Revolutionary War rallies through art studios, paper and book production, suffrage advocacy, as well as women's, children's, and African American rights activism. In her lobbying efforts to assure the site's future, Millie was persistent and convincing enough to bring together federal, state, and county legislators to meet and listen to members of each family who had occupied the Mill House through the centuries. Her beloved house was not Mildred Starin's only project in a lifetime of advocating for history. In the mid-1960s, when so much infrastructure development was knocking down the old in favor of the new, Millie lobbied to save another 18th century house farther up the road, the homestead of Reuben Dio in Highland, New York. She drove to Albany and she stood at Governor Rockefeller's door more than once to halt the destruction of that old stagecoach stop. Although it worked for a while, ultimately, another road project leveled that historic site. In 1967, Millie saw demolition begin on the Chadwick estate in the city of Newburgh between Powell and Carpenter Avenues. This 1850 mansion was designed by Calvert Vaux and Andrew Downing, and they contributed to its beautiful landscape. Millie couldn't stop the construction of Roman Gardens apartments there instead of the mansion and its grounds, but she did try. As the glorious old house disappeared into dump trucks, she rushed in one evening and rescued from the rubble a fine handcrafted finial that had graced the roofline, about the size of me standing up there. She donated that 4-foot copper sculpture to Downing Park, where it is now on display in the visitor center, the Shelter House Cafe, to tell more of the story of the park's namesake and its designers. For several years, this is when I got to know Millie, she was a prime mover for fundraising events, especially the solstice cruises for the Newburgh Preservation Association. Her efforts taking folks out on the river to turn and see Newburgh at its best helped to keep the 1835 Dutch Reformed Church standing on Grand Street. During those early 2000s, she was the vibrant face at the door of that national landmark, welcoming visitors to tour and experience history. Millie herself, in a video that was taken years ago out at Gomez Mill House, where she walked and explained the beauty of the property, summed up her life as a preservationist when she told that reporter, "I was dazzled and astonished by the history I was uncovering." And she couldn't help but share it and proclaim its value. as a former Martha Washington Award recipient, and I cannot think of a better woman to congratulate in 2019 for emulating the qualities of our First Lady, than Mildred DeVito Starin.
But I do know this much, that whatever I have done and accomplished, it's rewarding to me. And that the gift is in the giving. Thank you.
Mildred, we have a special surprise for you today. I'd like to invite up New York State Senator James Skoufis, Orange County Legislator Kevin Daryan Lujan, Acting County Executive Henry Ford, and County Historian Johanna Young.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon, Mildred. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm up here with our local county legislator, Kevin Daryan Lujan, and our county historian, and I think Mr. Port is here too, right? Yep, our acting county executive. I wanted to be here, we wanted to be here to help celebrate with you in learning about you today, and in leading up to today, I am in awe of the life that you've lived, the history you've seen, but more importantly, at least as it pertains to today, the history that you've created and preserved. You know, it really is astounding in putting together this proclamation that I'm about to present to you, learning the history of the home that you lived in and preserved has been incredible. The people who have lived there, philanthropists, farmers, Minutemen, you know, people who truly touched our country in many ways, and because of your efforts, our neighbors, our community will be able to see that home for perpetuity. And so it is my privilege to present this proclamation to you in honor of the Martha Washington Woman of History Award. It is my understanding that Martha Washington, as her First Lady, truly disliked being First Lady. She found it very uncomforting. She did not want her husband to be president, but she did it because it was for a higher calling, to serve her country. It sounds like you've enjoyed all of the efforts that we celebrate today, but much like Martha Washington, we celebrate your higher calling on behalf of our community. So congratulations, I present this to you, and many more years of success.
All the presidents today. Our senator said it best, and our county, our historian as well. I'm just happy to be here and to be a part of the great work that you've done. I just also wanted to, on behalf of the county legislator and in Orange County as a whole, present you with a distinguished award for Orange County for this presentation.
I wasn't expecting to speak, but I've known Mildred a long time through working here at Washington's headquarters and at the Crawford House and other places in Newburgh. I've called her on the phone many times to ask questions about people that she might remember, or some of the old historic homes, some of the details that she remembers because she saw them before they came down during the urban renewal period. So I know it's been said a few times, but I'd just like to thank her for all the work she did to document the buildings that were being torn down, and to advocate for them, to try to save them, and to save some of the things that she saved. If you've ever been to her house, she has artifacts around the house, things that she literally pulled out of the dumpsters during urban renewal and preserved them for us to see. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
You told that story.
Mildred, if you could please come back up. We have a gift for you. There you go. And, yes. Would you like to hold that for you? Mildred, your fans would like you to turn.
It'll help. It'll help. It'll help.
Oh, that's a beautiful, I love that. Thank you so much. I often wondered about her. It's Martha Washington, An American Life. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.